I was a fat kid, I was a skinny guy for a little time, and right now I'm pretty jacked dude with a decent knowledge about training physiology and weightlifting. But I was like you in the past. I wanted to increase my strength and muscle size, mostly because I wanted to improve my performances in judo, which is my sport. But the problem is on the internet, when you search for optimal methodologies, you search for the best exercise, it's the problem with that field is that it's full of people who are more concerned about grabbing your attention and keeping you entertained instead of giving you real ground information about weightlifting and training and things that actually work instead of all the fancy new stuff that everyone is talking about the new study about hypertrophy. Fuck all that shit. Do the things, the basic that actually work. So I passed myself in the last 3 years trying all different methods, doing trial and errors, seeking all the best methodologies in order to improve strength and muscle size. Seeing myself in plateaus, I saw myself overtraining and not being even able to lift a barbell for how much my CNS was fried. And I changed training program every couple of months because I wasn't confident in it. But right now I have a good understanding of what is needed to create and execute a program, and I will share this information with you. Expect to learn in this video about how you can build a full strength program for your whole body and become swole as fuck. So here's how I would get jacked and strong again if I have to start from scratch. The first thing that you need to do is to establish your frequency of training. So ask yourself how much time you want to dedicate week to week about resistance training and weightlifting. Personally, I was able to build my physique with 2 to 3 times of weight training per week, and also training judo 3 to 4, sometimes even 5 times per week. And by the way, judo is very catabolic sport, so it has a little bit of, how can you say, competing adaptations. So while weightlifting builds muscle, judo breaks down a lot of muscle because consumes a lot of calories, is very catabolic. So you can expect also to have better results if you're not doing any of that thing. So I would recommend you 2 to 5 times per week depending on your schedule, and 1 hour, 1 hour and a half usually will do the trick. Based on how much time you want to dedicate to your resistance training program, you have to choose what type of split you want to use. The split is basically how you divide the different stimulus during the week. So to make it very, very simple, split is which body parts you're going to train in certain days of the week. There are many different ways you can split up your training. What I will recommend is a full body training. So you train your full body every session 2 to 3 times per week. If you want to do an more higher number of sessions during the week, like 4 times per week or 5 times per week, you can do an upper-lower split. What it means is that one day you will train your upper body and the next day you will train the lower body, so that you have at least 1 day of rest for every muscle group from one day to the other. The third thing is to select the exercises. And hear me out. There are a lot of exercises that you can choose, but the body of everyone moves in the same way. And there are 4 major compound movements, which is upper body pushing, like the push-ups, like the bench press or the military press. The upper body pulling, which are the pull-ups, for example, or the rows. The squatting, lower body squatting, which there are also many different ways here, back squat, single leg squat, Zercher squat, etc. And there is the hinge, which is your deadlift, Romanian deadlift, good mornings, hyperextensions, whatever, what trains the back and the posterior chain, basically. 4 movement patterns: upper body pushing, upper body pulling, squat, and deadlift, and hinge. These are the 4 main movement patterns. If you have all of these compound movements in your program, you trained nearly every single muscle of your body. And I'm a big advocate for these movements because, first of all, they are fun to learn, they are fun to do, and maybe in the beginning not really much because it's very difficult to coordinate your body, but once you are able to put a lot of weight on your squat, it becomes very, very fun. When you are able to bench more than you expected, it becomes very, very rewarding and satisfying. It gives you a sense of mastery, and mastery leads to increased intrinsic motivation, and increased intrinsic motivation leads you to have more consistency in the gym, and if you have more consistency, you will have more gains. The second thing is you can progressively overload compound movements until infinity. For example, if you use a machine, if you max out the machine, there is no way to increase the weight anymore, but with compound movements you can increase it until forever. And also it plays a lot of tension on more muscle at the same time, so it's very effective. It's very from the time standpoint, I kind of nerd for efficiency, but if you're able to use different body parts with the same movement, you can how can I say, you use your time better. Okay, the downside, there are a couple of downsides of using a lot of compound movements, which is you have to learn the technique first, so it could be very difficult in the beginning because you are trying to squat and you start to shaking your body, you're not really able to maintain your balance. And also the biggest critique that is made is that for beginners it's not the best. However, they are not as complicated. In 2 to 6 months maximum you will learn the technique, and it's not that much complicated. You can improve your technique along the way while you also increase the weight. Okay, you can learn the technique and also progress with the weight. It's not true that you have to learn the technique strictly first and then progress. That's not true. You can progress and learn the technique at the same time. If you want to train with machine and not free weights, it's kind of gay, but it's fine. You can use machines and use the same movement patterns. For example, for squats, you can use the multi-power squat. For the hinges, you can use weighted hyperextension or also the multi-power machine. For pushing, you can use something like the chest press machine. There are a lot of this in the gyms. For the pulls, you can use the lateral pull down or the row machine. Okay, it's not discriminatory. You can do that too if you're too impatient to do coordinated movements. But trust me, if you get into weightlifting, if you find it fun to lift weights, you will start to appreciate also the compound movements. What I will recommend is to select one exercise for every movement pattern. One exercise of pushing, one exercise of pulling, one exercise for squatting, and one for hinging. For example, what I use in my program right now is bench press for upper body pushing. For the upper body pulling, I use the pull-ups, the weighted pull-ups in my case. For squatting, I use the king for leg exercises, which is the back squat. I simply love the back squats. And for hinging, I like to use the Romanian deadlift. Now you should have your main compound exercises. If there is a zone of my body that you want to grow more or that has a deficiency on the others, you can use isolated movements to grow that zone. So let's say that I would like to grow my shoulders a little more. I would add lateral raises, okay? And it depends by your exercise, but if you search on the internet exercises for shoulders or exercises for abs or traps, whatever, you will find an accessory exercise that you can add to your program in the end. Once you have your main compound exercises, and these are the most important, and you add a couple of accessories that you want to add because they are fun or because you want to grow a certain zone more, you can actually start to create the program. So one thing that is very important is not performing exercises casually. You should have an order, and the order is very precise. You should do lower body before upper body and compound movements before isolated movements. Why? Because lower body exercises and compound movements are much more fatiguing, not only on your muscles but also on your mind, because your nervous system have to coordinate a lot of different joints and different angles, so it's also mentally taxing. Okay, to make it very simple, it's very difficult for your body to use your muscle all at the same time. And if you do isolated exercises first, it will be much more fatiguing and you won't be able to load that much on your main compound exercises. It's like when your grandma said, before you do the hard thing and then you do the easy thing, to be to synthesize that principle. To give you an arbitrary order, I would say do first squat, second you do hinges, for third you do your pushing exercise, and for fourth you do your pulling exercise, and then you do your isolation. According to research, for every pattern, for every exercise that you choose, you have to perform around 10 to 15 hard sets per week in order to be effective. But in my experience, you can build muscle also with 6 sets per movement patterns, okay? Of course, if you do more volume, you will have greater stimulus. So if you do more, you will achieve also more. So decide how many hard sets you have for movement pattern per week. Let's say you want to start with 6 hard sets per week and you want to train 3 times full body. Your program could look something like that. I will put an image maybe around here. So for example, in day 1 you do 2 sets of 8 of back squats, 2 sets of 8 of Romanian deadlifts, 2 sets of 8 of bench press, and 2 sets of 8 of pull-ups. Then do bicep curls and skull crushers because you want to have big arms. Then you have different squats exercise, squats variation, hinge variation, pushing and pulling, doesn't matter. You do always 2 sets of them. And what matters in the end for your muscle growth is how much sets you perform in the whole week. I made this program based on a 3-day full body split. I keep it low in the volume in the beginning so that you can progress it in the week following it, but I will talk progression in a moment. I use the 8 rep range so that we can have a good amount of tension on the muscle without accumulating excessive fatigue from high reps. What drives hypertrophy is the tension experimented from the muscle to moderate to high loads. So whatever rep range from 5 to 30 have the possibility to give you an hypertrophy stimulus if they brought close to failure. If you want to be sure that your exercises are effective, you have to be sure that they are 1 to 3 reps shy of failure. So if I'm able to complete maximum 10 reps per 80 kilograms on the bench press, after that I can't anymore, I know that if I perform 7 to 9 reps per set with 80 kilos, I'm sure that this will be effective for the muscle growth and driving hypertrophy. Hope that it would be clear up. The 5th step is add progressive overload and be consistent with your program. So once you have made the program and you start to actually execute it, not only write it down, you have to progress in order to you have to progress the program in order to make progress. What do I mean about that? I mean you have to add load to every lift that you do. I would start with adding 5 kilogram per week to the lower body lifts and 2.5 kilogram for the upper body lifts. So if in the first week I'm doing back squats with 100 kilos, I would add in the second week 105, and I will increase it week to week. Be careful with your form. If you feel like you are not progressing with a decent form, if you're not progressing with a good technique, don't add more weight. And wait until you feel confident about it, wait until you can do strict good form with lift, and then you start to adding more. While progressive, okay, I said that. Oh shit, I tripped myself while talking. Sorry, I have my things written down here, so I have to be sure that I don't say any bullshit. What I was saying, at a certain point you won't be able to progress with the weight anymore, so after that you will need to increase the number of reps for every set that you do. So let's say that you perform 2 sets of 8 with 110 kilograms on the back squat. You can't increase the weight anymore, so you start to increase the reps. So the next week you are going to do 2 sets of 9 with 110 kilograms. When you're able to perform around 12 reps of an exercise with a certain weight, you can decide if you increase the weight or increase the number of sets that you perform. So you will do if you are able after a certain time of training to do 2 sets of 12 with 110 kilograms, the next week you're going to progress it with either 3 sets of 12 with 110 kilograms or 2 sets of 12 with 115. So we can go down the rabbit hole of periodization and overreaching, all of that crap, but honestly, I don't want to be too much specific about it. Just increase the training parameters every week and maintain good technique and you will become a late intermediate in 2 to 3 years. As a general rule of thumb, increase weight every week, and if you can't increase weight, increase the number of reps. If you can't increase the number of reps, increase the number of sets. If you can't add more sets, add weight again. Very general, that's what I used for progressing in my program. After that, you might find more specific programs, but the best program in the world cannot substitute effort and consistency. It's better to train hard and consistently on a shitty program than training optimally but once in a blue moon and with not that high effort. Don't overthink too much weightlifting because it's very easy. You just pick something very heavy and you pick it up. It's not that complicated. It's not that sciencey as it might sound. You just have to put a lot of effort and put a lot of consistency. That's it. There is no magic pill. Well, actually there is a magic pill that you can inject in your body, but it's better not to do that. Also, I will say things that you probably already heard, but remember that nutrition is also very important while building muscle, but in the beginning don't obsess too much over it. Make sure that you eat enough protein, around 1.5 to 2 grams per kilogram of your body weight. And to give you an idea, a man of 70 kilograms should eat 100 to 140 grams of protein per day. So roughly speaking, you will need to eat around 200 grams of chicken breast, 300 grams of Greek yogurt, 4 large eggs, and a protein shake will make the deal, but that's even maybe too much. Also, sleep is a huge factor, so you have to sleep around 8 hours a night, like your grandma used to tell you, and try to avoid alcohol as much as you can, because it disrupts your sleep, it lowers your testosterone, and have a catabolic effect on the lean tissues. So one drink once in a while, it's okay, just don't abuse it every Friday night. Don't get busted and find yourself in Las Vegas every weekend, okay? And also, don't drink, man. You say a lot of stupid shit and do a lot of stupid shit when you're drinking. Just don't do that. I hope that this video was useful. Remember to aim upward